Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're looking at 10 players who turned their teams upside down. 10. Ronaldinho. First up is Ronaldinho. Everyone's favourite skill merchant was a revelation in his early years at Barcelona, netting 15 league goals in his first campaign and inspiring Frank Rijkaard's team to 2 titles and the 2006 Champions League. The Brazilian magician was no stranger to controversy though. Following the club's Champions League success, Ronnie's appetite for partying grew, and by 2007, it was not uncommon for him to stroll out into a training session straight from the nightclub. To make matters even worse, rumours began to spread of a relationship between the player and Rijkaard's daughter, Lindsay. Ouch. Results on the pitch took a nosedive, and Barca went trophyless for 2 seasons as their talisman's form got worse and worse. So, when Pep Guardiola took over in 2008, the first thing he did was sell Ronaldinho to AC Milan, and we all know how the Catalans fared after that. It seems like FCB have since forgiven Ronaldinho though, as they signed him back up as a club ambassador in 2016. 9. Andrea Masiello. One player who cannot be expecting forgiveness anytime soon is Andrea Masiello. The Italian fullback began his Serie A career with Juventus, but the old lady were forced to sell him in a clear-out following the Calciopoli scandal back in 2006. Following spells at Siena and Genoa, Masiello joined Bari, where he helped them win promotion as champions of Serie B in 2009. But the defender obviously hadn't learned the lessons from Calciopoli, as he took part in a match-fixing scandal himself 5 years on. With Bari bottom and already relegated, Masiello poked a cross into his own net in a fierce derby against Lecce at the end of the 2010-11 season. The own goal condemned Bari to defeat and saved Lecce from the drop. The right-back later admitted to investigators that he'd been offered as much as €300,000 to help throw the game. Subsequently, Masiello was given a 22-month suspended jail sentence as part of Calcio Scommesse, but has since rebuilt his Serie A career with Atalanta. 8. Edmundo. Edmundo was signed by Fiorentina in 1997, following impressive spells at Palmeiras and Vasco da Gama in his homeland. The man nicknamed the Animal started life in Florence brightly, and the club's president, Vittore Cecchigori, even described him as a player of crystalline class with a lion-like temper. But it wouldn't last long. Edmundo's temper was legendary, and he walked out of the club after 9 months, claiming he'd been promised more game time before eventually being persuaded to return. But midway through the 1998-99 season, with the Viola top of the league and chasing their first league title in 30 years, the Brazilian left again, this time heading home for the Rio Carnival. This spelled the end for the Purple, who had just lost Gabriel Batistuta to injury, and they ended up the season in 3rd, 14 points adrift off top, and lost the Coppa Italia final to Parma. Edmundo left for good that summer and had spells with Napoli and Japan's Tokyo Verdy before retiring in 2008. Fiorentina, meanwhile, are still awaiting for that 3rd elusive Scudetto. 7. Andrea Silenzi. Andrea Silenzi was the first Italian to play in the Premier League when he arrived at Nottingham Forest in 1995 for £1.8 million. Silenzi, known as the Big Brush, had been brought in to replace goal machine Stan Collymore, but was an instant flop, showing little interest in playing whilst earning £30,000 a week, huge wages at the time. In total, he made 20 appearances, with just 7 of them starts, and he eventually went back to Italy on loan with a total of 0 Premier League goals to his name. Impressive stuff. And with Forest facing relegation in 1997, new manager Dave Bassett called for Silenzi to return to the club, but the player refused, and Forest ended the season bottom of the table. They had just finished 3rd when they signed Silenzi 2 years before. Silenzi continued not scoring in Italy before finally retiring in 2001, whilst Forest remain in the Championship. 6. Michele Padovano. Michele Padovano was another much heralded Italian signing. He won the Champions League with Juventus in 1996, but by the time Crystal Palace bought him for £1.7 million in 1997, he had dropped to the Juve reserves and was seriously unfit. Palace chairman Mark Goldberg thought a lucrative contract would equal big results from the forward, but how wrong he was. 12 appearances and 1 goal later, Padovano was allowed to join French club Metz for free. Palace finished bottom of the table that season and quickly tumbled into financial turmoil, eventually going into administration in 2000. While things are now looking much better for the Eagles, the same cannot be said for Ivana. Following his retirement, he was arrested in 2006 for his implication in drug smuggling and was later sentenced to 8 years and 8 months in jail. Oh dear, Paddo. 5. Rodney Marsh. Next up is Rodney Marsh, the perfect example of why they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Marsh was in fine form for QPR when Manchester City spent a club record £200,000 on the striker back in March 1972 to help them with their push for the title. City were top and favourites to take the Division 1 crown at the time, but managed just 8 points in their final 8 games following his arrival. Many blame Marsh for breaking up the team's rhythm and causing their title bid to fail, even his own teammates. City's left winger Neil Young said, "Rodney cost us the league, there's no doubt about it, and when Rodney came in, he unsettled the team." He also went on to say, "Somebody would give him the ball and I'd make a run ready to collect. I'd turn around and he'd be juggling it like a bloody seal." Someone get the man a fish. City, meanwhile, had to wait another 40 years for the league title. 4. Faustino Asprilla. Like Manchester City in 1972, Newcastle were looking good and were on course to take the Premier League when they signed him in February 1996. The Colombian striker started well, making his debut in a victory over rivals Middlesbrough and earned the nickname Tino from the Toon Army. But performances soon dipped, and his failures on the pitch coincided with the Magpies' late season collapse as they famously let a 12-point lead slip and finished 4 points behind eventual champions Manchester United. Asprilla was far from hated at Newcastle, but many blamed his arrival for the club's failure to secure their first league title since 1927. And since then, the club haven't come anywhere near. Asprilla managed just 9 goals in 2 years at the club and eventually retired in 2004 after spells in Italy and South America. 3. Denis Law. Now, this is a bit harsh. Denis Law is a Manchester United legend, and along with Georgie Best and Bobby Charlton, he was part of United's holy trinity during Matt Busby's golden years at the club. He scored 237 times whilst at Old Trafford, picking up the Division 1 title twice, an FA Cup and a European Cup in those glory-laden 11 years, even nabbing the Ballon d'Or in 1964. But he is also remembered for something fans on the red side of Manchester would love to forget. With United struggling post-Busby, Law was given a free transfer to rivals Manchester City in 1973, and a year later he scored an infamous backheel against his old club in front of the home crowd. City won 1-0 and United were relegated to the second division. Because of results elsewhere on the day, even if United had won, they would have still gone down. But the Lawman didn't know that, and the goal came to symbolise Manchester United's fall from European champions to national laughingstock. In a 2012 interview, Law said, "After 19 years of trying my hardest to score goals, here was one I almost wish hadn't gone in. I was inconsolable." Dennis, things are looking up now, my friend. 2. Charlie Copeland. And now for a contract saga that makes Yaya Toure look like a bloody saint. All the way back in 1919, Leeds City were preparing for their first season of proper domestic football following the First World War and were pushing for promotion to the First Division. Charlie Copeland had other ideas. The fullback was stubborn in his demands for a pay rise, so stubborn in fact that he decided to blackmail the club. Copeland knew all about illegal payments the club had made to guest players during the war and threatened to spill the beans to the FA if Leeds didn't meet his demands. The club ignored the threats, but Copeland was a man of his word and duly reported them. An inquiry was carried out, and within months, Leeds City were expelled from the Football League, the only time this has ever happened midway through a season. The club had to sell their players and assets, and a new club, Leeds United, took over Ellen Road. Leeds City were history thanks to the pesky Copeland. Barring a short spell in the 1920s, would not be reformed until 2005. 1. Zurab Kishinashvili. At number 1 is Zurab Kishinashvili, who managed to ruin his club's hope in a mere 45 minutes. The Georgian centre-half enjoyed a decade in British football, and he ended up on loan at Reading back in 2010. The Royals reached the Championship playoff final in 2011, setting up a clash with Brendan Rodgers' Swansea, and despite having only made 22 appearances all season, Kishinashvili started one of the most lucrative games in world football. It was a nightmare from the off, and he got himself booked in the 12th minute and was lucky not to be shown a second yellow when he gave away a penalty not long after. 2 minutes later, he failed to stop a cross which led to Swansea's second, and by the 39th minute, he deflected another cross into the path of Stephen Dobbie, who made it 3-0. The match ended 4-2, and there was no doubt who to blame. One journalist even wrote, "Reading have barely done a thing wrong, apart from pick one astonishing galoot at the heart of their defence." It would prove to be Kishnavilli's last game in England, and he moved to Turkish club Kayserispor following his calamity at Wembley. What a donkey.
So we hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, there's another one playing on screen right now. And as ever guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.